Hey everyone, Poindexter here, and we continue our playthrough of the solitaire wargame Western Front Ace. In the last video, First Lieutenant Daladier was killed in a fight with a German two-seater. His lucky charm saved him, however, and he suffered a serious wound instead, which kept him out of action for 2 months. His career continues in June 1917. With his promotion to First Lieutenant, he now has the prestige to fly the newest French Scout. So, let's get started. Since we're starting a new month, we shuffle the combat cards and check for any ground offensives taking place, but there are none. Next, we determine the number of patrols we'll be flying. And Albert will fly 2 patrols this month. As stated earlier, the French began rolling out a new scout to the front lines in May 1917, an updated version of the reliable SPAD, the SPAD 13. This SPAD is superior in almost every way, with higher speed and excellent agility compared to our SPAD 7. But, even more important, are the twin Vickers machine guns, finally giving us strong firepower equal to the current German scouts. The durability of the SPAD 13 is the same as the SPAD 7. As noted on the aircraft card, it requires 3 prestige to fly the SPAD 13, which is exactly what our pilot has. So we'll use our prestige to purchase this new scout. We'll also lose 1 sortie while transitioning to the new fighter. One thing that hasn't been mentioned is that, thanks to Albert's promotion, he now has the use of a wingman, which gives us more options in combat. Now, we're ready to begin our first patrol with our new SPAD. This mission will be a line patrol, requiring us to fly to no man's land and patrol the area. Albert takes off, and we check for our first encounter and spot enemy two-seaters near the airfield. The two-seaters are Roland C2s, and the enemy starts with the advantage. Albert will perform a barrel roll, just in case the German decides to fire, and count on his superior performance to give him the advantage in the initiative roll. But the German attempts to break off, but fails to do so. This allows Albert to gain a position, and both aircraft are now head-on. We now determine the final initiative. The Roland has a base initiative of 11 and the SPAD a 15. The Roland scores 15 and the SPAD 18, a difference of 3 which gains Albert another position shift, and he is now advantaged. Albert will use his reflexes to shoot first in this round. He fires and scores 5 hits. The engine, fuel tank, and tail are struck, with 2 hits striking canvas for no effect. The engine hit does not cause a fire, and the fuel tank is leaking. The Roland goes defensive and performs a side loop, improving his position by 1, and is head-on. We determine the final initiative. With a damaged engine, the Roland applies a -2 to its base initiative, which equals 9, with our SPAD remaining at 15. The result is 14 for the Roland and 17 for the SPAD, a difference of 3, and the SPAD gains a position. Albert goes another round with the two-seater. He fires and scores 2 hits, plus a bonus hit to a crew member. The Roland performs a side loop and gains a position, but not before the rear gunner gets the chance to fire. But he scores no hits. The Roland is now head-on to our SPAD. We apply our 2 hits, and the tail is struck again along with the fuel tank. The pilot was also hit and is seriously wounded. The fuel tank hit does not cause a fire. However, the Roland is now out of the fight, as it must make an emergency landing due to the second hit to the fuel tank. Since the Roland is forced to land in friendly territory, it counts as a victory, and Albert receives credit for his 4th kill. With plenty of ammo left, thanks to his precision skill, Albert decides to press on and continue the patrol. He moves to friendly territory, a check for enemy encounters. And luck is with us as more two-seaters are spotted. The two-seaters are LVG C5s, slightly faster than the Rolands encountered earlier. But, once again, the enemy starts with the advantage. Albert will use his advanced maneuver to avoid one potential hit and gain a position. The LVG decides to attack. He fires and scores 3 hits, but we remove 1 hit thanks to our advanced maneuver. And the shots wreck our landing gear, but no other serious damage is caused. Albert gains a position and is now head-on. We now determine final initiative. The LVG starts with 12 and the SPAD 15. The result is 18 for the LVG and 20 for the SPAD, a difference of 2 and no change in position. Albert attacks the LVG and potentially destroys it with an accurate burst. The LVG also decides to attack and lands 4 hits. We apply the hits to the SPAD first. Most hits strike canvas for no effect, but 1 damages the controls, which will make our landing more challenging. Regardless, the LVG has been destroyed, and First Lieutenant Daladier is now an ace. Victorious, Albert heads back to the aerodrome. We check for our final encounter, and the skies are clear of enemies. We must add +2 to the landing attempt due to the landing gear destruction, and a +1 due to the controls also being damaged. Applying Albert's landing skill, we apply a -1, which brings the final modifier to +2. It's a 9, modified to 11, and a safe landing, but it was a close one. Albert only took 3 hits, so his SPAD is repaired in time for the next patrol. First Lieutenant Daladier is now an ace, so he is awarded a prestige point. For downing 2 enemy aircraft in one mission, Albert is awarded the Croix de Guerre and gains another prestige point. He is also awarded the British Military Cross for the same action and gains a 3rd prestige point. Albert has also flown 4 sorties, which gives him another experience point. Congratulations, Lieutenant. It's the beginning of a new month, so we start by shuffling the combat cards. In July 1917, the Ypres offensive begins, so we place the marker on the map. This area is well north of our position, so we won't be called on to fly any ground attack missions in the area. We now determine the number of contact patrols we'll be flying, and we'll be flying 3 patrols this month. Albert's first mission of July 1917 will be a bomber escort mission, which means we'll be traveling to enemy territory. We are not allowed to engage enemy two-seaters on this mission, only scouts, as they are the primary threat. Albert takes off, and we check for our first encounter. And no enemies are spotted. We proceed to friendly territory and check for enemy aircraft. And the skies remain clear of German aircraft. We cross into no man's land and check for enemy encounters, and manage to slip past the lines unnoticed by enemy aircraft. We arrive in enemy territory, and Albert scans the sky for enemies and spots enemy two-seaters, but we must ignore them as they are not the priority on this patrol. The bombers drop their payload, and we begin the trek back to our airfield. We check for enemy scouts, and still no aircraft are spotted. We make it back to friendly territory and check for encounters. And enemy scouts finally make an appearance. The flight is made up of Albatross D3s, and the enemy starts with the advantage. Owlbear will use his advanced maneuver to avoid one hit and gain a position. He'll also use his reflexes to gain another position at the end of the initiative roll. The Albatross fires and lands 4 hits, but we remove 1 hit because of the advanced maneuver. And both struts take hits, with the third striking the tail. Owlbear's advanced maneuver brings him head-on with the Albatross. We now determine the final initiative. The Albatross's base initiative is 13 and the SPAD 15. The result is 14 for the Albatross and 18 for the SPAD, a difference of 4. Owlbear now has the advantage. But thanks to the reflexes skill, we gain another position shift, and Owlbear is now tailing the German scout. Fortunes have quickly turned, and Owlbear has the German in his sights. He fires and potentially destroys the Albatross. And the Albatross makes a bad move, which gains the SPAD a position shift. But it's irrelevant in this case, as Owlbear is already tailing the Albatross and cannot position shift any further. With the bad move, the Albatross is destroyed, and Owlbear scores another victory. Nearly out of fuel, Owlbear approaches his airfield, and we check for our final encounter. And no enemies are spotted. We check the weather over the airfield, and the weather is poor, adding +1 to the landing roll. But Owlbear's landing skill negates the penalty, so he makes an automatic safe landing. Owlbear only took 3 hits during this patrol, so his SPAD is repaired and ready for the next mission. And with that, we've reached the end of this video. With his new SPAD 13, Lieutenant Daladier had great success on these 2 patrols, destroying 3 enemy aircraft. Many medals and prestige were gained as a result, and Owlbear is riding high for the moment. But our pilot is very vulnerable now, being at the mercy of the combat cards with no lucky charm to save him from outright destruction. The hope is to survive long enough to gain another experience point and acquire the 6th Sense skill, which turns any destroyed outcome into 2 hits instead, negating forever the dreaded DE outcome. If Owlbear can continue gaining the advantage over his opponents, things should go well. But, as this game shows, World War I air combat is brutal and unforgiving, and no pilot is ever truly safe from instant death. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you on the next patrol.